If you're like most people, you want to create the kind of marketing that makes people want to reach out to you and connect with you. And so this podcast, we're going to explore ways that you can do just that. Come listen.
Welcome to the Behind Her Brand podcast with your host, Kimberly-Spencer. Every week, join Kimberly and her guest for inspiring interviews with passionate business builders, corporate leaders, and catalysts of change. Plus, we will be sharing business and career building strategies and tools that you can use to grow. So let's dive into today's episode.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of our Behind Her Brand podcast. I am your host, Kimberly DeShields-Spencer. And today we're going to talk about creating a very engaged marketing platform. I get asked quite often, how do you keep your audience attention? How do you keep creating content that's engaging? Like, what should I do, Kim? How do I need to do it, Kim? And here's the thing. I'm gonna break down a couple of things that you can consider using in your own platform. But let me first say this. One thing about marketing that is very frustrating for so many people, and even myself at times, is that there was an old rule that you had to present your marketing 7 times before someone makes a buying decision. That number, in my personal opinion, has almost been doubled. And I say that because when that was taught to us many, many years ago, like 20 plus years ago, obviously technology has changed. Content consumption has changed. Everything in this space has changed. So your audience is now being consumed, excuse me, by so much. Constantly on social media, constantly on the news, constantly in their emails. So you have to cut through that. And you got to remember, you can't just post one thing and expect an avalanche. Now, if you have that kind of platform that's already very engaged, they're very excited about whenever you put something out there, excuse me, I got a little tick in my throat, then yes, they may respond very quickly. But typically, you got to post things a couple of different times for people to become like engaged and want to connect with you or want to reach out in some form or fashion. So I wanted to set that tone first because you have to have a realistic expectation that you're going to have to post a few different times, a few different ways, in a few different mediums in order to get the type of result that you're really looking for. And that's key. Okay. I am so sorry for coughing. I have a little tickle today. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. First and foremost, you got to be sure what your audience wants from you. Okay? Let me make sure I really break this part down, because often when you look up information, they always say, know what your audience wants. I'm a big believer in that. But say, for example, you're someone that speaks on leadership development. That's a very broad topic, right? So if they Google leadership experts, leadership consultants, there's going to be a array of people that are going to pop up. So how do you cut through that? How does your marketing cut through that? If you have a topic that typically is very broad, find what your best areas in that topic is. Like, for example, I'm marketing and branding, right? Again, very broad terms. But when someone comes to me about social media development, am I good at it? I think I'm good. But am I great? Not quite there yet. And I can be very honest about that. I'm still learning and building in that platform. So I would refer them to a colleague of mine who is amazing in that space. Now, if they want to look at strategy, if they want to look at brand development, brand voice, and all those areas, I'm your girl. So I know where my strengths lies, and I know the areas that I'm still growing in. So I would never teach someone in an area that I'm still growing in, because I want them to get the best possible resource possible. So when you look at yourself and look at where you are in, look at the category that you fall under and ask yourself, what is my area underneath this area that I am really, really good at? Because leadership development could be middle level management, executive management. It could be team development. It could be about culture. It could be about all these different topics. Now, I know so many people are like, well, I don't want to limit myself to a particular area. This is not about limitations. This is not about limiting yourself. This is about making sure that you have a strong positioning in a core area that may be potentially highly competitive. It also gives you a very strong distinction. It doesn't mean that you have to only be in those topics, that you can only train in those topics, and that you can only create content in those topics. It just means that people know when they come to you, these are your core areas. I still have people that come to me for areas that I may not be the strongest in, but if they're adamant, like, I really want to work with you, I'll bring in, again, a resource that can help them while I help them in other areas. It's important that your audience knows what you know. They will need to know where your level of depth in the expertise is, because that's what's going to draw them in. So that's first and foremost, okay? You got to be clear on the areas that you really want to put out there in marketing to engage your clientele. Next, you got to know what they're looking for. You got to know the solutions that your audience needs from you. And I keep stressing from you, because here's the thing. Your audience may want to grow in a particular area, be challenged in a particular area, be inspired in a particular area. But when they come to you, depending on how your brand is structured, but depending on what you put out there, they're going to be drawn to you. You may be really engaging. You may be more about facts and figures. You might be very warm. Whatever the sentiment that your brand represents, it needs to infuse even throughout your content. Everything has to flow together. Here's an example. I had a client who really wanted to build her marketing and branding, and she wasn't quite sure what direction she wanted to go in. And so she went to a particular consultant that was very much about stats and research and what have you. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's how their branding was set up when it comes to developing marketing and that kind of thing. And she found that that approach didn't really work for her. And when she and I worked together, it was more about, and my approach is always, let me get to know you. Let me understand your voice. Let me understand what really makes you tick, if you will, what really makes you feel connected to what you're doing. Because I know in that space, the more connected you are to your business, to your voice, to all of that, it's how your information is going to flow out of you and be able to affect the change that you want to in your business. Everyone has an approach. Your audience needs to know your approach. So the next step, obviously, is to know what they want. So whether that's through survey, whether that's through posts, whether that's you picking up the phone call and just checking in with people in your industry, or even asking people, hey, do you know people that fall into this particular area? And you reach out to them and just say, hey, I just have a question. Right now, what is something that you really wish you see happen in our field? What is something that you wish there was more information about? What is something that you feel so confused about when it comes to our areas of expertise? And gather that information. That's first. Second, there's a really great website called Answer the Public, and you can go online. I believe it's called Answer the Public. If I'm wrong, I will put it in the show notes. But you can go in there and you can Google your area of expertise. And what happens is all the questions that people are Googling all around the world pops up, and you're able to see what are the search questions, what are the search phrases. And when you see that, you can create blogs, you can create podcasts, you can create speaking engagements, you can create so much content based off of what you're seeing people are Googling out there. And that is very key, because one, it hits on the SEO factor, and two, it allows you to stay current on what people are actually looking for. And more importantly, once you look at what they're looking for, you'll find the questions, you'll find the searches, you'll find all that content information. You'll find the ones that fit for you, because not all of them are you going to be able to address, but you may be able to say, oh, people are looking for this. I can write on that. I can speak on that. I can share information on that. The next step after that is, once you know what you want to share with your audience, think of all the different methods that you can do that in. People learn differently. So if you're only blogging, if you're only posting pictures, if you're only doing one particular thing, you're going to lose so much of your audience. Some people are visual learners. They want to be able to visually see beautiful pictures, videos, and all that kind of thing. Some people love to read. So if you have a really detailed blog, have that. Some people love to just listen. I get a lot of people that say, hey, on my morning walks, I'm listening to you. And so for that audience, the podcast is perfect, right? And next, you may have someone that says, you know what, I need to see people. I don't want to do all this online stuff no more. So you may have different ways of presenting your content. You got to give them options. The more options you have that fit who you are, that's key. Not fit what everyone says you need to do, but fits who you are, is going to create a more engaged audience. Now, the next thing, you got to present your information at different times, multiple times. You can't just do one post about one thing and expect to have, like I said, a running crew of people running to you. You got to post it at different times. And some of this part here is more about metrics. You got to learn when people are online. You got to learn when they're the most engaged with your page. And all of that goes into analytics. And not everybody loves that. Not everybody enjoys that. But here's the thing. If you're not trying to build a hobby and you're trying to build a business, you need to know your numbers. You need to know your analytics. You need to peel back the curtains and see, okay, this post only had maybe 3 or 4 likes, but I see the engagement reach almost 100 something people. And furthermore, if it also causes them to sign up for your newsletter, maybe make a purchase, whatever that might be, then that marketing, that worked. Now, you may have a post that, hey, has so many likes and comments, but nothing in terms of tangible. No one went to your website. No one purchased anything from you. You look at that post and it's a good way for you to say, okay, why was this post so engaging and why did it not cause my audience to do anything different? So this is where the other piece comes in. If you want to create something engaging and interactive, you must analyze your marketing. You must analyze your analytics. You must do that process. It is so key, because if you don't do that, then you're going to be putting out stuff, crossing your fingers, hoping something's going to stick and work, and it doesn't. It has to have due diligence behind it. I'll tell you, there's times where I post like about the magazine. You guys know we have our magazine, and I post it in different ways. I try to post people engaging. I try to post it behind the scenes. I try to post about the women in it. I try to pull out different things, and I try to make it as interactive as we can so that people are not bored with looking at it. Okay. And we also ask for feedback. We're a magazine, but we're also a very content-driven company. We want to create, inspire, educate, and do all those different tenets that we believe in. And so in our marketing, we make sure that we follow each of those tenets. So again, we do that based off of the feedback we got from our audience. All right. So I'm going to recap. First and foremost, be clear on what you want to be known as in your space. Be clear on the areas you want to focus on. Be very clear on what your audience really needs from you. What are they coming to you for? That's so important. Next, make sure beyond anything that you review your marketing. Review what works, what's not working. Look at your analytics. Make sure that the information that you're sharing is being shared in multiple different ways. And these are the different things that you can do to help create more engagement. Okay? Now, what do you do after listening to this? Spend the next literally 14 days creating content in multiple different ways. Make sure you talk to your audience and be very clear on what it is that you know that they're looking for. And then next, spend time uploading everything, and then spend the next 2 weeks looking at your analytics. Find out, if I post at 7:30, do I get better engagement at that point in time? If I post at 2 or 3, is that the better time, or is my audience more up at night? Like, putting the information up for at least a solid 14 days and doing your due diligence and looking at the analytics and seeing when engagement takes place is key. And yes, posting often is definitely a rule of the thumb, but you don't want to just post anything. You want to be very strategic about what you're posting. You want to make sure that people want to stay on your page as much as possible. So it's not just about posting. It's making sure you're posting stuff that they want to see, posting stuff they don't mind looking at their feed every day. That's the key. Okay. If you have any questions, let us know. But thank you so much for listening to another Behind Her Brand podcast. And I hope that this was helpful. I hope in some fashion that putting these things in place will help you create a more engaged audience. You can learn more about what we do here at Behind Her Brand at www.behindherbrand.net.